What you been up to, kid? What's the news in the world?
So most immediate was that yesterday was July 4th, and they had this thing at Grand Park, which is a big park in downtown LA. They had a block party for it, and I'm not too hype on any 4th of July things, or really at this point any public event things. It takes a lot to get me out. But then I saw.
Are you still masked up? You still running around masked up?
No, I'm not masked up. I will mask when I fly, but that's it. Otherwise I'm not masked up at all. So I saw it's more just a resistance of I just don't want to park and then go somewhere. All the shit.
It's why I don't like going to New York, by the way.
Right.
I hate New York.
Yeah, because cities are different. It's a little bit easier in smaller cities like in Orlando where you can get in and get out. The parking isn't going to be crazy. The traffic isn't going to be crazy. But yeah, I went to this event. It was a block party in downtown LA, free, open to the public, several blocks. It was more than just a block. And this is the lineup for this 4th of July block party. Charlie Tuna and Cut Chemist, Bahamadia, The Beat Junkies, Maya Jupiter featuring Medusa and Georgia Ann Muldrow and Jessa Calderon, J-Rock, Babu, Rhetmatic, Mr. Chalk, Cypress Junkies, Gas Lamp Killer, DJ Day, Spinurita. So I was like, well,
yeah.
But the weird thing about it was that clearly whoever curated this, there was one person involved in this city initiative who clearly has very niche and good taste. And they were like, whatever you want, Valerie, we'll sign off on it. And it was packed because it was 4th of July and it was downtown LA. I don't know how many people who were there with their families might know what a beat junkie is. Yeah. But they were all there and enjoying it. So that's what was cool. And so I went to that and that was really, really, fun. I'm glad I went out. And what was crazy, we're talking about vision. I walked over and found the second stage because we went to the Beat Junkie stage first because that was where we came in. And then the second stage, when we found it, Bahamadia was on stage with DJ Eclipse. And they were rocking for this big crowd and it sounded great. It was amazing. And then she
DJ Eclipse.
Yeah. Shout out to both of them. And so she got off the stage and then I was just standing there and the crowd dissipated a little bit because there was an act break before the next act got on. And she was probably standing, I don't know, probably 70 feet, maybe 100 feet away backstage. I saw her talking to somebody and I could see her, but I was like, there's no way she's going to see me. And then her vision shifts and she sees me. And mind you, I've never met Bahamadia in life. I've had her on The Questions and I had her on Can't Knock the Shuffle. So we've done Zooms together, but we've never been in the same room or building in life. She sees me and I wave to her. She waves and then does a double take and does an excited wave. She runs over to the barricade. She hands me and my friend who I was with wristbands. We go backstage and she's just like, oh my God, I'm so happy to see you. This is so crazy. And yeah.
What is this life?
Yeah. And she was like, so I heard it's a card game now. I'm like, yep, I'm going to send you a card game. And we met Eclipse. Eclipse was back there. And, it was crazy. And then I left before the fireworks.
So, good job by you. Yeah. So Bahamadia is a falcon, is what you're saying.
Bahamadia has very good vision. Very good vision. And also, I have to say, I don't know when the last time was I saw her or if I've ever even seen her perform live. She sounds great. It sounded just like the record. She's performing, no hype man. Bahamadia. Yeah, she really is
get busy.
She's a professional. She's an MC.
Yeah. 25 years or so,
Yeah. So that was my 4th of July. Did you wind up doing anything? What was going on?
Look, man. So here's the inherent issue with you busting that out and then going, so did you do anything? You live in LA.
Yeah.
I mean, it's kind of unfair to even throw that back. We should have started with what I did so that it could go up because in Orlando, I found out that there was a block party in Kissimmee and they had Johnny Freedom perform and nothing happened out here that was of any interest. You know what I'm saying? And the problem is, because there's nothing going on that's that cool in Orlando, then the only thing that you can do is just get up with your homies, which is awesome.
Which is great. Yeah.
Which is awesome, except you don't get up with your homies when there's nothing to do. You kind of need all right, what we doing? And if there's really nothing going on, so nobody really got up yesterday. I did drive all the way to Zarism's crib to have him help me with Zelda.
It's truly one of the nerdiest things I've ever heard you say in your life.
I might actually have you edit that out. That's gonna fuck up my next album rollout.
This is the clip. This is like the highlight.
Yeah, I drove. I mean, when I say called him, like, yo, I need help with this. He was like, yo, I'm at Walmart getting some stuff to grill, and he was like, you want to come through? I'm gonna be cooking. I was like, I want to come through, but I don't even care about the cooking. Like, I actually need you to help me with this pie. I literally brought my Switch.
Wow.
And Zar lives a solid 30 minutes from my house.
Right.
Like, I literally jumped in the car, drove 30 minutes to Zar's house to bother him while he was trying to cook, by the way. So he's trying to cook. His wife is like, well, no, he's trying to help me. His wife is like, hey, you got to finish the food.
It's kind of a greater purpose here than just,
and I done took over their whole living room TV. Their whole family's there. And I'm like, hey, so when I get to this part, he's just like, well, hold on, and I'm like, yeah, no doubt. And then I'm just like staring at him until he finishes so he can come back out and help me. So that was the majority of my 4th of July.
Can I ask you, as somebody who hasn't played a game in a long time, could you not just go on YouTube? Like, are there not resources there, or was it that you wanted it from a trusted source?
I read what needed to happen. It's just my fingers couldn't do it. It was unfangulable. It couldn't be done by James fingers, by beast fingers.
Wow.
I got these beast hands, man. It wasn't really working out. So, and it's funny that you say that, because his son sat on the couch the whole time right next to me, reading all the stuff off of YouTube and the internet to tell me how to do the thing that I already read all the same things. I couldn't explain to him that I just couldn't do it. No, the reason that I'm here is because I can't do it.
So it was like a physical feat that you at one point had to pass the controller to Zar to do the thing that you couldn't do with your fingers. How crazy is this? What do you need to? Do you need to bend your finger back all the way or something?
I can't beat it. I can't beat the dude.
Wow.
I can't beat him. So so I did that, and then it also gave me an excuse to get out of my house because my air conditioning is broken in Central Florida. It's been 90 plus every day with high humidity, and my AC unit Dunzino.
That's one of the worst things that could happen to a person, I would say. Especially where you live. It's no joke.
Now, shout out to my grandmother being a sage, because last year, not in the summertime, randomly, my grandmother's always calling me and offering me something or telling me that she picked up something for me and come by the house and get these avocados that I got. Come by and get these. I got a random chair that you should come take. This is every weekend I get a call like this. So, and it can range from some food item that she found on sale and bought extra of to something that she saw at a thrift shop or something, right? This is how she lives. So, I want to say maybe 7 or 8 months ago, she was like, hey, you should come over and get this. I got this portable AC unit. And I'm like, okay. And she's like, yeah, you should take it to your house. I'm like, what I need it for? My AC works. And she's like, I don't need it. And I was just like, why do you have it? She's like, well, I saw it and it was this price. And she's one of them. You just grab anything that you see for a price that makes sense or for free or whatever. So That's the only way I've been surviving. I got this big ass portable unit, and any room I'm in, I drag it to that room and hook it up.
Wow.
Which is, if I got to be in multiple rooms, it's a rough day still. But
you got to just camp out in one spot, have it, hooked up. Yeah,
I got to just be in one spot. But good friend of ours, Amin, came through, assessed the issue, so they're going to be installing a new AC unit. They were going to come today, but they're coming on Friday to install a new AC unit. Now, here's how Amin set me up and made it worse. So the AC unit is working. The air is blowing cold air. Cold air is blowing out of this thing. The problem is it's so hot, and my AC unit is so old that the outside temperature is overpowering what it could do inside. Like, it can't keep up.
Yeah.
Right. So the whole day it's hot, and then it starts to cool down as the night comes, because the cold air starts to be able to win a little bit. And then usually by 10 o'clock or something, it's at the temperature that you're trying to get it to, right? And that happens all night until the morning when it starts to raise again. So that's kind of been my cycle for a little bit while I've been waiting for them. So he comes, assesses it, walks out. We walk outside. He's looking at it. He's like, yeah, we just need to get a new unit here. Boom. He's checking stuff. Boom. The day that they come check it, when they leave, is the hottest day. Right? Like, it's the hottest night. And I noticed that it ain't really getting cooler at night like it do kind of every night. The next day, dumb hot. Hottest day. In my house, the thermostat read 85. Woof. I was like, what is happening? So I call him like, yo, I don't know what day y'all was planning on coming. You got to move it up. I think it's actually broke now, like where it's not even doing anything. So we was having this conversation. I go outside. These fools, when they went outside to check it, turned it off. And failed to turn it back on.
Yeah, oh wow.
It just wasn't running.
Yeah.
Bruh. I'm like, yo, you can't do that. Like, I could die in here.
That's like manslaughter. That's like attempted manslaughter.
Like, living in Florida without a car, that if you have a car, first of all, living in Florida without a car is rough life.
Fucked up.
It's rough life. Living in Florida without a car, or with a car, with AC, or excuse me, without AC, just as fucked up. You might as well not have a car.
I've lived that life. I've had AC broke in a Florida summer. Actually, you could ask I Make Mad Beats about this, because I piloted this concept. I had a portable fan, and I was like, well, I have an AC plug in my car. Maybe this will work where I can run a fan.
That's the worst idea I've ever heard in my life.
It doesn't work. It's just blowing hot air onto you. But I had to try.
I like how that was your solution, and you felt good about it. You were like, I mean, I got this. What I need?
Well, it's expensive. That's the thing. And so is this home AC replacement expensive?
Yeah, man. Now it's $6,500.
Ugh. That's not a fun purchase.
It's not a fun purchase. And what's crappy about it is, what's cool and crappy is I'm financing it through this situation where some program where they added onto your mortgage, which is interesting. So, like, I'm not having to come out of pocket, right, with any of the money just yet. Like, I didn't have to pay anything for them to come set it up, or nothing like that. But it has a pretty decent interest rate, and I kind of wasn't thinking about it super hard, like because I'm dying, so I was just like, yeah, whatever, like let's do this. And I was talking to my mother about it, and she was like, yeah, what's this? I sent her the thing. She's like, looking at it. She's like, yeah, you might want to try to put extra money on this and try to get this paid off. And I was just like, I mean, it's on the mortgage. Like, I'm not even really tripping. Like, I got 20 years to pay it off. And she's like, yeah, 20 years is going to cost as much as the house. You know what I'm saying?
Yeesh. So, yeah.
you might want to pay this shit off. I was like, oh my God. So it's home ownership bullshit, bro.
Yeah, I'm not completely sold on it, to be honest. Luckily, I live in Los Angeles, so I don't really have much of an option for it. So
I'm about to say, you got a couple mil? You sit on a couple million?
No, I actually don't. So yeah, this is what the podcast is, guys. A little bit of barbecue talk, a little bit of air conditioning talk. No, this is should we get into some questions from like
Patreon?
Let's do it.
Let's do it. What's in the minds of the people?
All right, so we got a question from a guy, Lars, on the Patreon who says, the topic that was brought up about the ringtone era was super interesting. I would love to hear more about what you guys think about how that time in mainstream rap and how it may or may not have influenced what was going on the independent side of things. Yeah, I mean,
that was a wild time. So here's what's interesting, right? So like, I think musically for a lot of people, your teens and your early 20s are probably the most influential time for you, right? Like as you register music and, you know, kind of shapes what you like and what you don't like for the rest of your life musically. So I'm 38. I'm graduating high school in 2002. I want to say ringtone era is really right smack dab there, right?
Yeah, I mean, I just to reference after this. Yeah, well, I'm looking at it like snap music, also known as ringtone rap, snap rap, 2000s. 2000s is like early 2000s.
It's up until really you're talking about, you know, and I'm not looking at a thing right now, but really you're talking about probably 2000 through maybe 2007, 2006.
Yeah, 2007, 2008, maybe I would say.
Yeah.
Because 2007 was Soulja Boy, Crank That. So like that was
okay. So even a little further than that, then you know what I'm saying. And man, that was a rough go, and so the question is a great question because what he then says is, and how does it, you know, shape, I guess, what your relationship is with, you know, not mainstream music, independent music.
Yeah. What do we think about that? And then how did that also affect the other side of it? Yeah.
Yeah, because so this will be my take on that. You know, coming out of I'm gonna tell you, man, coming out of the transition in hip hop was wild because you're coming out of, I think, in my opinion, when you talk about like 95, 94, 93, like, yes, there was big, like, quote unquote commercial records that, you know, your Hammers and your Vanilla Ices and different things like that in the 90s. But like hip hop was kind of just hip hop. It wasn't really like a big mainstream and commercial divide. Like, I mean, mainstream and underground divide. Like, kind of everybody kind of had the tools to kind of live on both sides of the world, and in a lot of cases, people did. I mean, you had big, you know, Mary J. Blige records with Keith Murray on them, you know, and
right,
and Smith and Wesson is doing that kind of stuff, and then you got, you know, Wu-Tang records that are street records that are, you know, that are hits, you know what I'm saying, and stuff like that. So like, I feel like the big divide between mainstream and underground really started to hit like after Big passes and after Wu-Tang Forever comes out, and when you start to get into that 98 run where in my opinion, in 98 is where you really start to see like these records that have like the obvious commercial record on the album. Like, okay, this is the single.
Jiggy. And like the Jiggy sort of like gloss. It was a marked decision to sort of like pivot to something that maybe didn't steer as true to like the ideals of, you know, whatever was happening outside of the New York fat beats, you know,
right.
Right. It was a conscious decision to, you know, hit wider audiences, and that's where that divide. But this is still prior to Ringtone.
But this is still prior,
right?
And so here's so you getting DMX with some big records. You getting, you know, Pun had the big singles. The Jay-Z run really starts to get cranking in 98 with the record he had. Like, you could see the changes in the way rap was cut. Like Rap City started to change a little bit, and you know, just the TV shows and things around hip hop were really changing, and just, you know, it was getting different, but it was still we thought it was starting to get corny.
Right.
Little did we know where it was going. We were like, yo, this shit right here. So I say all that to say there was a whole bunch of people that I know who were already turning away and moving into indie underground hip hop. And there was a bigger divide because like I would consider something like Killer Army to be underground.
Right.
Like I would have considered like, yeah, Killer Army, that's an underground album. That album went gold. I mean, is that an underground record that sells 500,000 copies?
It's underground in aesthetic, but not in the literal like underground measuring like popularity, you know?
It's a gold selling record. So the divide was real crazy because it goes deeper than just something like that. So now you're going, no. Killer Army is not underground. Like, what's actually underground? That's where you start to get into the Stretch and Bobbito run, and you know the Def Jux stuff starts to really start cranking, and a lot of that energy starts running. The Doom stuff starts cranking, and all of that, and that was the underground. Like that was under the underground. So say all that to say it seemed like coming into 2000, 2001, 2002, there was like the tippy top commercial records. Then there was like some middle ground.
Right.
And then there was like the deep underground. Cause like, you wouldn't consider Black Star. Like Black Star was probably in the middle ground.
Black Star was like underground compared to Puffy, but in hindsight, it's like, yeah, but like you had like very expensive looking music videos. Mad Skills has the funniest story that he's told me when he shot the video for the B-Boy 99 joint that was...
The document joint?
Yeah, B-Boy document. Yeah, off the Raucous Sound bombing. And it was like... it was him, the High and Mighty, and Mos Def, and like they're doing, you know, this like big... It's like it was a huge production.
Yeah.
And they had some shot, and I might be like paraphrasing parts of the story, where basically... He was telling me they had some like shot where they had a whole camera crew and they're in a car and they're supposed to drive off and then come back to their mark, right? And like Mos Def is in the car driving and they drive off, but instead of driving off and coming back, he pulls to the left and they like drive way the fuck off, and like everybody's on like the walkie-talkies and they're like, guys, you have to come back, and like they just like were cruising off fucking around, and like Skills was like, yo, like what's going on? And Mos Def laughs and he's like, let the Murdochs pay for this.
Yo.
Because Raucous was obviously funded by, you know, Rupert Murdoch's son, which is
crazy.
Oddly what Succession is sort of based on, you know, some of the what's the main sons?
What's the last name? Now it's been like a
Roy. Well, it's Roy, but what's the first name? The last name is Roy. Kendall Roy is sort of based on, you know, the Murdoch son who was an investor in Raucous. But anyway, all of that is to say, yeah, like there were different tiers to what was considered mainstream, underground, middle ground. I think the big thing about snap music or ringtone music was not that it was necessarily derived from hip hop getting more commercial. It was derived from an entirely different region, because snap music came from the South. You know, like it's not like, yes, I feel you that like DMX was having like Party Up and like, you know, like Mace, but I don't think that any of the ringtone rappers were like descendants of those artists. This was a Southern thing.
But just speaking from the perspective of a possible lapsed fan. Right. Like you're already in this space where you like, I was one of them kids. I was like, I don't even turn on the radio. Like, fuck the radio. Like the radio don't play nothing that, you know, that's ill. So we were already on that wave. And it's funny because the stuff that was on the radio that we were like, yo, man, fuck that. That shit we listen to now.
Right.
Like, we did the pun episode. I love Don't Want to Be a Player No More.
Right.
I was super anti that type of energy at that time though. Like, yo man, like his whole album's grimy thing. He got to do the sellout joint, like type of energy. But little did we know, like that's not even that crazy. And these are good records. You know what I'm saying? Like these are really dope records. But yeah, what ends up happening is you end up with a whole group of people or, a whole subset of fans who are like super anti anything that's getting played on the radio, but everything that was getting played on the radio, like the middle ground wasn't getting played on the radio either. You know what I'm saying? Like, I mean, I don't remember a lot of, now mind you, I'm not in a major metropolis, so it could be different. Like I'm sure in New York, the B-Boy document was getting spun somewhere. You know what I'm saying? Like,
maybe, I don't know.
Somewhere, like on one of those radio shows, late night, something, right?
Yeah.
But like when you get out of the major cities, man, like Orlando was only playing top 20, top 40, and that's it. Like you're not getting none of that other kind of stuff. Now, I do remember stuff like I remember the B-Boy document video. I remember a lot of the stuff. The videos was getting burned, but this was also the time that the videos and what was getting service to MTV and BET started to switch up a lot too. Like it started to turn into more like, and then you get to the TRL and the 106 in Park energies, and by the time you get to that, stuff like the B-Boy documents not getting played on those videos ain't getting played no more either. You know what I'm saying? Like it starts to get really crazy. So that Ringtone era was wild because that was formative years for me. Like all of my close friends at the time was going to the club, rocking all these things. You know what I'm saying? Like Walk It Like I Talk It,
Laffy Taffy,
Laffy Taffy. Wearing the wild long t-shirts and the wild long jean shorts.
Yeah, like.
That was a wild flex too. Like, do you remember how ridiculous that used to look?
It's truly an embarrassing time to look back on now. It's like, it's maybe every generation feels like that. And again, I would also say that like we weren't wearing those. I mean, I know I wasn't. I don't think you were.
I definitely was not. But a lot of my guys were.
It's embarrassing to even see. Even if I saw pictures of strangers, I was like, like fashion is pretty stupid. Like history repeatedly proves that fashion usually is stupid. There's like a thinner part of the pie of things that like you look back and either it's transcended and it's so good, or you're like, oh, I understand at the time. And then a lot of it is just like, what the fuck was going on?
Yeah, like where did XXX tall tees? They were like
tall tees,
shirts that were coming down to your kneecaps, like. And we were walking around in public around business people wearing these things. You know what I'm saying? Like wild jean shorts that the bottom of your jean short is touching the tip of your sneakers or the top of your sneakers. Like, it was wild. And if you match that look with the music that was dominating radio, I mean, I thought it was an apocalypse. I was like, yo, so if you weren't tapped in, like, let's just say you were, okay, I'll give an example, right? So I had the luck to, even though I wasn't, because I'm not even going to say during that era, I was the most tapped in. I became tapped in the more that my rap stuff started moving around. I started running around with other people that could clue me in, right? But just on my own, I wasn't the most tapped in. I'm in Orlando. I don't really know what Stretch and Bob is playing and, this, that, and third and whatever, except for whatever people would tell me or whatever.
There's a different time for internet, too. I mean, internet was not as much of a provider.
And if you don't know, you don't know. Like, you don't even know what to search for if you don't know what to search for, right? But imagine somebody like, my uncles who I talk about a lot who put me on to hip hop music. Like, imagine my uncles coming up, their formulative era is maybe you want to say 88 through like 94, right?
Right.
And what does hip hop sound like and look like to them when it's 2003, you know? And they're like super like, what is going on? And they're not on the cusp of the internet, and not even to the level that we are. You know what I'm saying? So like to them, there's really just the mainstream, and like, you know, that's it. Yeah. And maybe you hear some stuff in the middle area, but you kind of think that it's done Zeno. Like you're like, yo, it's a wrap. Like everything that we kind of knew that was kind of, you know, quote unquote dope hip hop, it's kind of like not existing anymore.
Right. Or if they saw like a Mos Def, like they might not necessarily feel tapped into it or recognize it, but they could recognize like, oh, he's kind of doing what this guy did before. So like, I see how he's carrying the torch. Whereas like all of a sudden, if you're introduced to like them franchise boys, and like it's like a completely different planet. And I remember too at that time, because we were both sort of part of what was like a pretty healthy music scene in Orlando of independent music. There was major segregation between the type of events of like things that would fall under, we'll say what would have been filed under the B-boy document, and then things that would fall into more of like the snap ringtone music. And like those events did not really cross-pollinate, except for when they did, which was like, then it seemed like scenes in Avatar where the humans meet the Na'vi, and it's
facts.
It would just be like, okay, well, this is an open mic or a battle or a contest, and it was such a stark clash of culture. And in hindsight, I mean, look, in hindsight, I'd like to say that like we were right all along, you know, because you had like snap music that was very popular, and it is not popular anymore. There are components of it that I guess have still passed along.
Components, but it died.
You know, like if you look at, I mean, obviously Lil Jon is like still a big deal.
And Lil Jon is the crunk era, which is almost a different era than the snap era to some extent, which all falls under the ringtone era though.
Right. But like, I guess if you had a gun to your head back then, and like you sort of like it was Soulja Boy versus Little Brother, right? These are like the two pillars. In 2023, it seems like one of them did distinctly win in terms of like culture and perception. I don't know what Soulja Boy did with his money. Maybe he's fine and he's great, but you know, it's weird because I think also the tendency to rally against snap music also speaks to like some really like kind of closed-minded ignorance when it comes to like regionalism and just being like, oh, that's not real hip hop. You know what I mean? So like, I feel both sides of it. Like I do feel like one form of the music is superior to the other, but I also feel like there was a lot of great music that like maybe was able to sneak in or the world got open a little bit more once we were open to the idea of like, okay, not everything has to be a New York tempo, a New York style, a New York cadence, a New York accent. You know what I mean?
Well, and it's interesting because, I mean, okay, so just look at the South, right? Like, look at South records in the 90s, and then look at South records, you know, in the 2000s. Like, they don't even sound like they're from the same planet.
Right.
You know, like, music really, and how much of all of this has to do with people not sampling anymore and people not wanting to sample.
That's a huge part of it.
You know, like the music clearly took a left turn or right turn, whichever side you sit on, when producers were like, yeah, sampling kind of sucks. Like, it's expensive. We can't clear it. Like, you know, like, and the easier that you made getting the tools in everybody's hands to do these things turned regular non-music people into music people. Right. Like, you know, and that's like kind of all of that hit at the same time. And like so much was happening and changing so rapidly in society. You know, we didn't even bring up the most important thing I think about the ringtone era, which was the ringtone.
Like, right. There was a reason why they called it ringtone. Right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Like, you know, like, bro, me and I Make Mad Beats I remember me, him, and Czar, and my man AC, and I want to say a couple other people that we knew, we all copped those, and I got it somewhere. We all copped those, them Samsung, there was like these Samsung joints that also could work like the Nokias.
Okay.
I mean, not the Nokias, the
Sidekicks.
No. What was the
like the
Nextels? The Nextels.
Yeah.
So it was a Samsung that worked like a regular phone, but it also had a button to do the walkie-talkie thing with other of the Samsungs, like the Nextel. So we all got these joints because the stupid ass hustle that we had was like, all right, like we only got these certain amount of minutes, but we ain't even gonna use those minutes because we just gonna talk on the walkie-talkie.
Right.
You know,
which is a good solution. It's a good solution to a non-existent problem today. That's another thing to think about. That like minutes were limited. Yeah.
Nighttime minutes, daytime
Weekends,
minutes, you were over your minutes hit, your phone stops working, like all that kind of stuff. So we had the whole gang of us had those phones, little chirp joints. And the first thing that we did when we got that was the first where you could use real music ringtones. That was the first phone where we could use the real music ringtones. We spent the whole day editing songs for ringtone purposes.
Yeah.
Which
is a crazy thing to think about now, where like anybody who doesn't keep their phone on silent is looked at as a psychopath. Is looked at as what? Where you heathen? Where are you from? Why are you doing it? Put your phone on silent, bro. Like, right. Yeah.
And if your phone is not on silent, it just rings. Ring. Right. It doesn't. Nobody has a ringtone at all.
Right.
Everybody with an iPhone has the exact same notifications and everything. Like, it's very rare that I run into somebody who's caring enough to change their notifications or their ringtones.
I will say in the late 2000s, I did take the part on the J Dilla The Shining album with Busta Rhymes on the intro where he's like, "Ayo!" That was my text. So that when I would get text, it would be like Busta saying "Ayo." But that was...
We had more... I had the Power Rangers. I had that joint. I had a Transformer sound.
Right.
All of that stuff. We was doing all that stuff. And then I had, you had the different ringtone for when your crush called. You had like...
Stupid.
I remember my girlfriend at the time, when the phone would ring, I had the Dilla beat. Da-da-da-da-da-da, just because I really love you. It was just like, that's I remember when I changed that ringtone, it was one of them like, hey, yo, this for you. You know what I'm saying? Like, this your ringtone, Like, this is my regular ringtone.
But for your own girl.
It's for you, girl. You know what I'm saying? It was that. But like, that time for us was so crazy because, like, in one friend group, you could have mainstream, middle ground, and then like your underground guy, like kind of all in one friend group, listening and absorbing different music. What happened for me, and I'd be interested. Well, you're a little bit different, so I'm gonna let you tell your side of it in a second because I know where you're gonna kind of go on this. But what it ends up happening for me is, I don't know nothing about, Def Jux. I don't know nothing about MF Doom. I don't know anything about Stretch and Bob shows. I knew who Stretch and Bob were, but I didn't know about the stuff that was getting played, all that college radio stuff. Like, I didn't know anything about that. So my man, Jay Cross, goes to New York, or moves to Jersey for a couple of years while we're in high school, or when we started high school. He ends up moving back down. He went up there for maybe a year. And when he came back, he was like, yo, like, I remember being like, yo, you ready for this Inspector Deck album? This is 99. Yeah. I'm like, yo, you ready for this Inspector Deck album? He like, I mean, and then he starts talking to me about, but you mess with Sage Francis? And I'm like, what? Yeah, and he's like, he's just naming people that I'm just like, who are these people, bro? Like, so, and again, there goes Inspector Deck. Like, he's probably middle ground, you know, that you would call him specifically by himself, not in the group. But I'm thinking that's underground.
Right.
Like, nah, bro, like, we're not listening to this. We listen to Inspector Deck. They're like, we're not listening to that. We listening to Sage Francis.
Right.
You know, and Immortal Technique and all these names that I'm hearing around that time that was bugged, which then graduate to hearing, I remember, you know, for a long time, I was the only, or one of a very small amount of MCs in my school. And then the next wave of MCs that were coming around were like, yo, you fuck with copyright? I'm like, what is a copyright? Like megahertz? Like all this type of energy was coming around and I was ill prepared for it. Like my ears were not tuned for what was going on. We talked about some of that in our episode about
Fantastic Damage.
About Fantastic Damage. Like my ears weren't super tuned to it. But what ends up happening for me is this was a monumental moment. So this happens in my rap life. I lose at some point in time, I lose my rap book with all my lyrics in it. I had a notebook. This is before the Google Drive days, the Google Docs days.
Yeah.
I lose my notebook. I mean, all my lyrics is in there. Everything I'm trying to do in my life's work is gone. And I was in such a deep like depression of I lost this book and like I'll never write I'll never write great lyrics again is what I told myself. I was like, it's over. Like I'll never come up with these cool ideas. Like it's a wrap. And then I was like, what fed that was also the concept that music sucked now too. I was like, yo, this music sucks. Like I lost all my raps. Like I don't even want to rap no more. Like
what year was this? What year?
This would have been in the 03.
Yeah.
03, 04 in that universe. And what happens? That's when I first heard Donuts. Right? So what year is Donuts?
No, Donuts would have been 2006, I think.
Okay. So that's when I first were there already like Dilla tapes, like the beat tapes were running around. So maybe it wasn't Donuts, maybe it was some Dilla beat tapes because I Make Mad Beats would play stuff for me.
Yeah. And
I'm like, wow. Like I didn't know people were still out there making this type of stuff. You know what I'm saying? Like at one point you just felt indoctrinated with the ringtone era. Like to where you just don't even know that this stuff is even out there. And that kind of opened up like the Dilla beat tapes and then hearing Mad Villainy. Like and I'm talking about the Mad Villainy
the original
demo leaked.
The
you know, whatever.
Yeah,
like hearing that stuff was like, oh, wait a minute. Like there's still people being mad creative. There's still people sampling. There's still people looping and and it kind of brought me back. But it was rough, bro. Like the most hated song of all time for me came out in this universe, which is Shake Your Tail Feather, which I think is the worst rap song of all time.
Yeah, it's not great. It's definitely not great.
But you were working at a record store in this era. So you were tuned in.
Well, yes and no. And I think what this ultimately comes down to in a long, drawn out way to answer the question, I don't think that the independent scene and indie music responded to ringtone rap. I just think that listeners responded to it as a needed alternative or shelter from that music. And I think really what's more relevant is that the internet started really shifting the access to things where you were able to hear a Dilla beat tape without knowing somebody who got a copy of it. Things being uploaded, SoulSeek, Napster, all these things. So I didn't wind up working at the record store until probably 2007 or 8, but I hung out there almost every day trying to get them to hire me. So I was very open to all of that stuff for me, it was constantly hovering around and looking at these records and seeing things that seemed interesting. And shout out to like the used bin of CDs, because that's where I would just be like, just like you do when you're digging, I'd be like, oh, Def Jux or Rhymesayers or Stone's Throw. If I just see the label on that, I'll spend the $7, or at least I'll listen to it in the store to see what I think about it. And then OK Player, the internet message boards. You know, I'm not the first person to say this, but the OK Player message boards. There were other message boards as well. They came. A lot of
message boards. One day we'll have to have message board talk.
Yeah, but that was the thing. That was the predecessor to social media, and really, like Questlove says it all the time. OK Player was Black Twitter before there was Black Twitter. That was where a lot of it. So I was hearing a lot of these things. I knew about Little Brother from seeing them post on the message boards before they signed the deal. You know, and I knew about all of these other sort of ancillary things. I was never, as we talked about on the prior episodes, I was not so indoctrinated with like the Wu-Tang disciple, where like I felt like that was the only thing. I think for a lot of people, there was a very hard, like sobering come down period of being like, Wu-Tang is the greatest group in the world. Oh my God, Wu-Tang solo members make the best albums. Oh my God, Wu-Tang came back with Wu-Tang Forever. Like they're still amazing. But that come down period after that is like, oh, this album has a Wu-Tang logo on it, so I'm going to assume it's good and it's Wu-Tang. It's like, rough. This is not Wu-Tang. Oh, like this second album by my favorite MC of Wu-Tang is sure to be as good as the first. Oh, this is not. So for me, I didn't experience that very, uncomfortable come down because I wasn't that deeply involved in that, but I was, but I still had resistance to it too. I think like for me, I was very much more tapped into a lot of the Soulquarian stuff. Right. So like that was opening me up to some of those other things, but that all is still like, again, like the Commons and the Mos Defs and the Black Stars and the Roots, these are all on major labels. And
that was the thing. Like even we're talking about the B-Boy document. I remember the B-Boy document feeling like the most like commercial type record on that project.
Yeah.
Like even that being the thing, like it just felt, with the way that beat played out and everything. These fools had Nate Dogg on a joint. You know what I'm saying? Like
yeah.
Like this is not the dirt,
right? It wasn't the dirt, and it's funny because like probably my least favorite song on Soundbombing 2 when I first had it and was listening to it, and this would have been probably like my senior year of what year did Soundbombing 2 come out? It was probably in high school when it came out, but I was still listening to it a lot. But my least favorite song at the time was Company Flow Patriotism, because I was just like, what is this? Like this is This is something that is so abrasive to me, and I wasn't really up on Fun Crusher or anything, so I was just like, no, this isn't really good. And then when I went away to school and I went up to Orlando, I went to high school in South Florida, and then I came up, like 4 hours to Orlando. Then I had other friends who went to other schools, a lot of Florida schools, different parts of the state, and we would still like keep in touch. And I remember when I got together with one of them, my friend who's like super, super instrumental in putting me on to like a lot of new music as far back as like middle school even. He was like, yeah, like I'm listening to this stuff. You got to hear some of this. It's like LP and Aesop Rock and Cannibal Ox. And I remember listening to it. I was like, yo, this is my guy. He never steers me wrong. And he was playing it for me. And I would just be like, this is not hip hop, you guys. Like, this is not, I was like,
yo, I said the same thing.
Yeah. And I know we spoke about this a little bit, I think in the Fan Dam episode. And then all of a sudden at some point, something clicked and shifted. And it was probably 2003, 2004. Perfect ripe time. That's like me living away from home for the first time, figuring out who am I, what do I like, what do I not like. And then to your point, sort of feeling disillusioned with all of the shake your tail feathers and stuff. Like this felt a couple degrees even further removed, like where I could get down with a Mace Feel So Good. This felt like so far from that I was just like, okay, they're not making music for me. And I started to go back and re-listen to some of this stuff, and I was like, wait, I kind of do like this Cannibal Ox record. And like, I don't really know what like Aesop Rock is talking about on some of these things, but like, I kind of fuck with it. And then also, it's important to point out everybody tours now. Like in 2023, everybody does live shows. Back then, especially in Florida, you weren't really getting a lot of like upper tier hip hop acts touring as much. As soon as you find out about these indie pockets of like the Rhymesayers, Stone's Throw, like Megahertz, all this, and once you know where to look, these guys are coming to your city almost every year. And then that puts you face first with the culture, and you're like, oh, like hearing an A$AP Rock record is like very like disconcerting. When you see him perform it on a stage, it's like, oh, he actually can rap, and he has like control of the crowd, even if it's a little bit different. So that was like a big part of it too, where I was all of a sudden I was like, oh, I love all of this. Like this is way more interesting to me than second album Wu-Tang solo records or whatever is coming out from like the old stallion, the old stables of like Bad Boy, or, there was just a void. There was a void, and it kind of came in.
To your same point about those second records, so like going back to the Lapsed Fan, like my uncle's, let's say, okay, so there's nothing on the radio that's making me feel like, interested. And then like this Immobilarity record is not really good either.
Yeah.
Like, so there's nothing. Like I can't go left and I can't go right. Well, there's more, like I guess that's why you call it underground. Like you had to go a little bit deeper, but there was a whole thing there. And I feel like, to the point of the original question, like I felt like that universe operated just completely independently of, it was like two separate genres completely. Like this isn't even the same. And even nowadays, like, so one lasting effect of that is like, I'm a rapper, right? But like when you tell somebody that you're a rapper who's not a music person,
right,
what do they think you are? So like, I've always wished that there was another term I could use for what I do, because, hey, how you doing? What's up, man? What's your name? My name is MidaZ. What you do? I rap. The initial thought process is whatever's currently the most popular stuff. Oh, so you do that? Like, nah, I don't do that.
Right.
Well, then do you even rap, bro? You know what I'm saying? Like, and that was the thing back then too. Like, it was one of those things where like, oh, you rap? So you do this. Like, nah, I don't do that. It's like, well, that's rap.
Right.
What do you do? Well, I rap. Well, but that's rap. So that was definitely a different time. But that was my most hated. It's funny. It's my most hated. I have like nothing but terrible memories about that. But like, hindsight is 2020. And like, now that I look back, as much as I loathe and hate the 2000s, man, such great indie records and such great stuff came out in that time that I even forget about it myself when I'm talking about it, because you just remember, ringtone era. You remember what was happening, but man, a lot of fire stuff in that era.
Yeah. So the 2000s will be defined in terms of radio memories and music video memories by some of the worst things I remember ever hearing in my life up to that point. But yes, to your point, digging in and then remembering what had come out, it's like, oh, this was a renaissance actually. And whether or not they were influenced by each other or not, I'm not totally sold on the fact that, like, I don't think that they were responding to, oh, Laffy Taffy is big, so we're going to make something that's the opposite. I really think it was more the internet and the way that music was starting to be shared that kind of galvanized people to be, I don't want to listen to this shit, and there is an alternative, and I'm going to seek it out. But I don't think that it was created as an alternative to that.
You remember how big there were certain indie records that, like, and this, I think it just goes to show like how dominant the mainstream thing was, because there were certain records that would come out that were really good, but they were like when Little Brother came out, right? Like, that was a moment when that Little Brother record came out. Like,
yeah.
It was again, for the Lapsed Fan, there was so many people that was like, yo, I've been looking for this type of stuff for 4 years now, for 5 years now. And now, mind you, there was some other things that were already floating around, just like we said in the other episode. Little Brother didn't come out, and there was nothing like that for, the 3 or 4 years prior. There was some things, but the way that it came and they were able to put it together in one album in a pack, like they brought a revolution with that record. Think about the Blue in Exile record.
Yeah.
I mean, I remember seeing that album cover online everywhere that I would go. It was in on the message boards. It was in people's signatures. It was that image of his face was everywhere. And it was funny because I didn't know what a Blue was, what an Exile was, nothing. And I just remember seeing that picture so much. Like seeing that album cover is what made me check. Like I was like, this album has to be amazing. Like literally I see this picture every day. Like, and I'm not looking for it. You know what I'm saying? Like, but it brought a movement with it. It brought a whole energy with it.
Yeah. If they weren't going to get their music videos played on like TRL and Rap City, it was a different form of advertising where, again, shout out to the internet, where you're starting to go to sites every day. That's just a different screen that we're all looking at. And so that is another great channel to drill you in the head to the point where, like, I guess I got to listen to this Below the Heavens thing because I just keep seeing the album cover.
Yeah, that's what happened. Like,
what choice do I have?
I have to listen to this, right? Like, I'm a rap fan, right? Like, let me get us a chance. And it was fire.
Right.
You know what I'm saying? Like, I remember first hearing it, actually. Just a quick sidebar. I wish we could bring back I know everything happens in its time for a reason, but man, I miss the era of like discovering music and like the joy of discovery and like the joy of sharing the discovery with your mans, or like you and somebody discover something simultaneously. Like, what is this? And you're just like the euphoria that you would feel, like the pheromones that would go crazy. I remember the Little Brother record. I remember they had a joint on there called For You.
Yeah.
And I remember I Make Mad Beats like, you need to come to my house. Like, what's up? No, you need to come to my house. You need to hear this.
Yeah.
I'm like, I need to come to your house to hear a song? Yes, to hear a song, one song.
It's coming from a guy who later would be like, hey, I need to come to your house for you to help me beat the Zelda game. So this is full circle.
I mean? Yeah. Hey, man, life is different now. But I remember going over there to hear one song and being like,
yeah,
what is this, bro? Like, this is crazy. Like, and then running it 100 times.
Right.
And just being like, woo, the whole time going crazy over Fonte, just Butt Knife, just going crazy. And I remember doing something similar when we first really, really heard Below the Heavens. Like, what is this? So, yeah, that because discovering music is so solitary now. It doesn't have the joy of.
Well, it's not exclusive, and it's so easy that it actually, the act of doing it becomes difficult because we all technically have all the music ever in our phones right now. So it's a lot more to sift through, and then if you find it, you're not going to tell me come over and hear this. I mean, maybe we should do that. Maybe that is like the solution to sort of just be like, hey, like I know like in anything else, look, I know we could completely have a life just through phone calls and Zooms, but like we should meet once a month if we're working together or something like that. Like maybe that falls more on our shoulders where it's like, maybe we need to adopt some of those older practices. But yeah, it's just hard now to do that. And then if you text me something, yo, listen to this, I'll be like, yeah, I'll listen to it on this device that has 10,000 distractions that'll probably get to me before I listen to this.
And you'll listen to it when you get ready to listen to it.
Right.
And I may or may not have the same excitement by the time you hit me back.
Yeah. Yep. So we're doomed.
So I think that was a good conversation for the first.
Yeah. I feel like this is like where we ended, even before this.
Yeah.
Like,